Welcome back to another Epidose of these crazy people that just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. I got Justin here. I got a special guest, and of course, I'm Tom. So, welcome back, everyone. And Justin, what's our topic today?
Hi, welcome everyone back to the Meat Mosaic. Fantastic channel. Thanks for clicking. Thanks for coming. Of course, tonight's our live night where we take your questions or answers if we think we get things wrong. Uh, Today, not so much a topic as we have a guest, but right before that, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, share this with friends and enemies. And if you don't, that's why you're failing at carnivore. I'm sorry. Just you're not fit. You're not sending Meat Mosaic to your friends and enemies. You're not commenting. You're not hitting that like button. You're not hit that notification bell. So you know whenever we go live or whenever one of our videos drops or hits or whatever the words the children are saying these days. Um, but yeah, that's why you can't do it. That's why carnivore's not working for you. So more of that, and promise you, it'll work or your money back. Although this content is free, so that part's easy. So Sly, welcome to the channel. Welcome to our fun little chaos little meat area here in the YouTube meat space.
Hi, I love chaos. Organized chaos is my favorite thing in the world.
So, we do give order to chaos and then create more chaos.
Yeah.
That's our job. So you've got a story to tell us. So, where do you want to start? You want to go to the beginning? You want to hit the highlights?
I guess just some highlights. I come from a normal dysfunctional family. A lot of addiction and mental health issues on both sides. I did not, wasn't able to bypass that in the genetics. I am a 7-year recovering addict. I have been diagnosed with bipolar and borderline personality. I also have lupus and rheumatoid arthritis that's added to that list. And back in 2009, my addiction took hold of me pretty tight, and I went down a wild road after my husband passed away. In 2015, I got clean. I've been in a 12-step program since then, but I weighed about 200 pounds after coming out of treatment, and a lot of misery from that, and yo-yo dieting and taking my meds. And my meds, I had to put a lock on my refrigerator at night. That's how bad things were when it came to my medications and stuff, and eating. And then one day I was leaving work and I was stressed, and I went to a local fast food restaurant. I looked at the menu and I didn't look at it and, say, what am I going to get for dinner? I looked at it and said, what am I going to get to make myself feel better? There was a fleeting thought of, what if this doesn't work? Am I going to go use? That was probably the biggest reality moment I had for the food situation that was going on. And I started looking to figure it out. I found the Quit Sugar Summit, which is, have a host of different people of how to quit sugar or mental health or brain or just, it was all online. I found a program with them, and it set me on an adventure trying to figure this out. And a lot of education led me down a way of finding carnivore, a high-fat carnivore version of it for mental health purposes. Since doing all that and educating myself, I've been able to come off of all my mental health meds. I use the high-fat version of the carnivore-ish diet for my mental health as my meds. And I am no longer considered pre-diabetic. I don't have to take medications for my lupus, and I don't hurt in the morning from the rheumatoid arthritis. So, it's been a long road. And in the middle of all that, I started doing coaching to help other people, but I started focusing more on helping people that have more mental health or addiction issues. I find that is kind of one of the number one reasons you can pinpoint people for relapsing off of the harder illegal drugs, we'll call them, is the fact that, they're still not healthy because they're still putting these toxic chemicals into their body, and processed food, sugar, whatever it may be. And so that addictive brain is still going on. And I've been able to notice a huge difference in the last couple of years with myself.
Yeah. One of my favorite videos is from Dr. David Palmer. And he tells a story of a schizophrenic patient he had. And of course, when you're on psychiatric meds for a long time, people tend to gain a lot of weight. And the guy really wanted to lose some weight. So Dr. Palmer himself had good luck on the, never forget, it was the guy, it was like before keto and everything. What's his name?
Atkins?
Yeah, Atkins. So he helped the guy get on the Atkins diet, and he was doing better, and he needed less medication and everything. And so that was kind of his clue into, changing your diet and essentially going low carb and eating meat tended to alleviate a lot of the psychiatric symptoms, or at least lessen them. And then people need less medications, so they things like they gain less weight, so.
Yeah, I found Christopher Palmer is the one that kind of introduced the fact that you could use a higher fat ketogenic state for mental health. And then the button that clicked the most was that he talked about how parallel bipolar is to schizophrenia. And like, you could just be, you can cross over. It's something that definitely could cross over. And just knowing the history of my family and mental health, it was enough to push me to making better choices for myself with that alone.
I hear Dr. Palmer has got a book coming out.
He does. It's called Brain Energy. And I can't wait to be able to get it. It comes out in November.
I think it's time for me to start bugging him to come on the channel again. He's always too busy.
Yeah, I know that they've tried a couple other places, and there's like some things and stuff he has to go through now. I don't think he can just pop on anymore. But his story about Doris, I know Doris wasn't his client, but the other one that was his client was the same as he had a schizophrenic patient who didn't believe that he was schizophrenic. And then they started using a ketogenic diet for weight loss. And then, as time went on, the guy came to, it was like 3, 4, 6 weeks, something in that range, came to the session, and he, admitted that, like, hey, maybe this other stuff isn't real, and I do have this thing. So it's been great. I've done some, I did do a few ketogenic diet certifications, and I've also taken the mental health with Dr. Georgia Eady, which is a 5-week course with her. And that was wonderful because she puts it out there that, not everybody has to go into a ketogenic diet to get mental health, and better in that. Sometimes she just starts with a pre-agricultural paleo diet. And then from there, moving forward to see what somebody might need to help them.
We see in the autistic community a lot, people wind up trying the GAPS diet and they see improvements. But once that door's open and they see that diet made a big difference and they still have goals that they want for themselves or their children or whatever, then they start trying other things like keto and carnivore. It's kind of the path a lot of people do. I know I was low carb, then keto, then carnivore myself. So it makes sense that, people sort of migrate through the various eating modalities, as it were. So.
My problem is like, because I didn't have any real structure for keto at the beginning. It was, kind of grabbing from this influencer or that influencer, and it was a lot to take in of like what the right thing to do was, and sometimes it was overwhelming for myself. And frankly, I don't like vegetables and never have, and it was to go from like watching one person telling me I had to eat 7 bowls of this a day to like, I don't need any of that, is what you're telling me. It was a nice change to be able to do that. And then
first thing when you get out of bed, eat a stick of butter.
Right. And then just, happen to, and it makes it easier for me, especially when we're so busy with work and stuff. I like it simple.
Right.
Yeah. So Sly, so I grew up in AA, and I say that because my mom was in AA and would drag me, well, not drag me, would take me to meetings with her because she had no one to watch me really. And, I remember the coffee and the cigarettes, and the donuts, right? And the cakes whenever there's a birthday. So do you think that your addiction, or maybe what your theory on addiction is, because some say it's moral failing, some say it's medical, some, there's the disease model, some say there's an addictive personality. And then of course, my question is on top of that, the switching addiction. So from the hard substances or whatever your substance of choice was to the food. And I think AA and other models use a harm reduction model. And I think that's a really helpful model myself. But sometimes it can just move people from addiction to addiction, and people can even become addicted to meetings, which is also very interesting. So if there's any of that you want to pick apart, go for it.
So I think that there's all different kinds of ways that you can get to an addictive way. I think there's an addict, which is what I am. I know I'm an addict. I think there's such a thing as a harmful user who can become addicted to addictive substances. And I think there are normies that end up in some trouble, right? And depending on your situation, trauma, there's so many ways to get to where you're going. And I've seen that even in the recovery community. Like you can almost kind of see the difference between who an addict is and who a harmful user was, because the harmful user will end up, kind of separating themselves and being able to go on and live a more normal life. I'm not one of those people. I guess I'm not willing to test that I'm one of those people because I know my family history, and definitely taking your addiction into something else for sure, whether it be meetings. I've watched people do it with meetings, sex, relationships. And, that was one of the things that when I found what was going on with the food with me was that, most of my 12-step programming and fellowship is all based around food. Mm-hmm. And I found that, what their answer to that was, well, at least I'm not doing A, B, or C. At least I'm not in the street or in the gutter. And maybe that works for them, but it wasn't working for me, because I was still miserable and I was still having issues. And I've seen like a lot of people that don't address those, that maybe keep the caffeine addiction or, become addicted to the sex part or the relationships, that they continue to suffer and eventually relapse. The only people, not the only people, but the majority of the people that I see that make it are people that, continue to work on themselves and continue to do healthier behaviors outside of just the 12 steps. And they may not even realize that's what they're doing and that's what their cause of success is, but just the education that I've put with myself over the last 7 years and being a part of a community that does food for, health and mental health and nutrition, you can't say that's not part of reason why they're getting where they are. Unfortunately, though, our treatment centers and stuff aren't there yet with that. And I know the treatment center that I went to, our Sunday brunches and Saturday brunches, what got me to 200 pounds for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So I worked in a rehab facility in California, SoCal. And I remember I was one of the caretakers or whatever for the residents. I did the evening, not the overnight, but the evening, like 2 to midnight or whatever it was. And I remember the other people there, because we were in charge of dinner for the evening, would just get like those lasagna things, those big lasagnas, throw it in the oven. It's like, that's dinner. And like every time I was working, the residents really liked me because I always tried to make them something fresh. You know what I mean? Like I might use the oven, I might do something like that. And like, I kind of had my own game of Chopped or like, like I felt like I was on like the cooking channel or something like that. And that was really interesting. I remember this one time they just had like something like 30 pounds of ground beef in the fridge. I don't remember why. So I made hamburgers for just not only my unit and the house I was at, but the other house that was in there. So everyone came together and just had like a bunch of burgers. Too bad we didn't do no buns. It would have been a really great night. But, I'll always take that with me and just remember how happy they were to have like fresh cooked food even.
Oh, for sure. I went to treatment. When I decided to go to treatment, I was like, I went to the state hospital here in North Dakota to treatment. So they have to follow the guidelines or whatever is put out there for them for their grants and money and stuff like that. And I don't think that they understand or have the knowledge of the kind of damage that it can do for people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would be, I'm of the opinion, and people are free to agree or disagree, that the old system, I don't think it's going to change. And I think it's up to us to create new systems, new alternatives. Hopefully, I think at best, they'll start contacting us or people on our side to come and look at their programs and things like that. Or, I think a dream would be a farm that's attached to like a residential treatment facility, right? Where they could learn the skills, learn and have access to the food, and hopefully maybe sell some of it at a market or something like that and become an integral part of a community. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they call Rat Park. Being part of that community and doing that. They're doing some of that or trying to do some of that community stuff over in Moorhead, Minnesota, which is just like across the river from where we're at, which is good. And I've talked to one of our local places, their director, and I'm trying to put together, like they can't change what they're doing there, but they can let me come in and educate. So there are people that see that are at least open to let me come in and help educate people. I think if we can get some of these people, off the sugar and the processed foods minimally, they would have a better fighting chance of, staying and not relapsing.
Yeah, and I'm not able to really figure out the link as to why that makes people more resilient to relapse or to falling back in addiction. What I think happens is a brain that is not stressed, that is not inflamed, you're able to have more emotional stability and distress tolerance, because it's about that stopgap, right? Between thought, feeling, action, right? And you're going to your normal coping strategy, i.e. addictive behavior, what have you, right? And so being on carnivore, keto, high fat carnivore, getting rid of processed foods, what have you, what I think happens is it slows everything down. When you have a negative feeling or a negative thought, you're able to actually examine it, like how therapists tell you to do. Whereas when you're in a blood sugar increases, decreases, the chemicals in processed food, what have you, and this has been proven, it does interrupt parts of the brain, right? You do kind of get like some kind of brain shrinkage, right? Or dying off of the dendrites and things like that. The neurons don't fire as well. And so I think with everything slowing down, even though a person may want to use, they're going to give it a second thought. And I think that is where the magic happens. Would you agree with that? Do you have a different theory?
No, I think that, your brain, over time, your brain healing from, getting rid of the sugar and processed food, whether that's high fat carnivore, something under that umbrella, you do have that, guess. I have proof of that, I have, and it was a blessing and kind of sad all at the same time. But, me and another person in the 12-step community came off of our meds at the same time. And I am still off my meds. I'm not against medications at all if somebody needs them. And if I would have needed to go back on at some level, I would have, but I was on the maximum dose of everything at that point. And that person didn't make it. Like, they went back out and relapsed. And even being in a high stressful situation about a year ago, we had a convention in the town that I used to use in. And I hadn't been back to that town since I gotten clean. And it was very high stressful and anxiety, the fact that we were going to this town. And basic fear, but when we got there, there was a couple other people that had been in that same area and stuff. And I watched them have complete meltdowns. And then I've looked at them and I was like, oh, I'm okay. And the only difference between what I'm doing and what they're doing is our food and how we're taking care of our mental health that way.
Yeah, that's proof positive, right? And that's, so interesting. And you'd think this would be a eureka for mental health, right? Like, you think doctors across the world would be therapists, sociologists, addiction specialists, counselors, social workers would be out up and down every street, every blog would be telling a similar story, right? But unfortunately, so I was on the road to become a licensed therapist, specializing in addiction and things like that. But you're so hampered by your license and not being able to talk about food. You can share stuff, but you're so locked in, and so it's like trying to help people, at least to me. I had been to therapy before. I've had some substance use issues. I went through a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, what have you as well. So I've been on both sides of it. I was even hospitalized at one point in my life too, as a teen. So I've been all sides of it, right? And, the thing for me was like, okay, therapy, I found it helpful. It was great. I wanted to get in there and help people. But it's like, I feel like without being able to talk about food, I'm doing people a disservice, or I'm, how effective can I be? And doing the personal coaching now with the food and the food addiction and things like that, less burnout for me, right? Because I'm eating right, and less burnout for the people I work with, because they're actually getting truly better and not just doing this symptom management, coming in once a week, coming in twice a week. Oh, they have another attempt. Got to call the Met team, or got to talk them down and all that stuff. That stuff's so exhausting, not that I get it. I love it. But the burnout rate of therapists is ridiculous. Right. And so if the therapists aren't healthy, now I get you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be 100% healthy to help people. I understand that. But I think if you're going to be in a position of a licensed clinical therapist, you should at least have some modicum of your S together, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of therapists lose their license, right? Because they have clients coming to their house, they're smoking, they're using drugs with their clients. I mean, it's a mess. It is all over the place when you're in it, you know?
So peer support is a very prominent thing here in Fargo, North Dakota. And I think it's all over the place. It's popping up and stuff. And I did do our state certification in that, which originally was for mental health, and working and being around, fresh people coming in off the streets. I was like, I can help there, and I can do that in my 12-step program. But I think it's the later days of like with the mental health and the food addiction stuff that I really like doing that. And so that's where I went and put my focus into it. And I also thought it might be a little bit easier. It's not, because, the drug dealers are everywhere and everybody's using. So it's actually harder. I have to tell some of my clients that because they beat themselves up. We've got this diet culture of all or nothing. And, they make a small mistake and they want to throw it all away for a week or two. And I'm just like, no, don't do that. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. I like the James Clear Atomic Habits, that 1% change, and consistency over perfectionism, for sure. And I think that helps. And, it helps people knowing, like, I do come from an addiction background and I do have the other stuff. So when I tell them, this is harder than quitting drugs. Like, this is harder than stopping, street drugs. And I don't care. Somebody can fight me on that if they want to. But the fact of the matter is if I don't want to use drugs, I don't go to the drug dealer's house, and I don't go to a trap house, or don't go to a house or a place where everybody's using, right? That sets me up for success right there. That small minimum amount can set me up pretty high for success. And you can't do that with food.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no avoiding the advertisement. You have to eat. I mean, that's problem number one, right?
It's certainly
You
more
have to
complicated,
eat.
right?
The grocery store is the dealer. A trap house, I suppose it's a typical grocery store. Maybe the trap house is the liquor store or the convenience store. Probably more the trap house or the safe house,
Everywhere you look, a clown is trying to sell you a Coke and fries with your burger.
Would you like to supersize that?
I'll be right back. I gotta let the dog out. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I definitely see the definite, struggle there, especially because typically you don't see Coke addicts for 40 years. You know what I mean? But there are Coke, like Diet Coke addicts, Coca-Cola addicts for 40 years, right? So
Yeah.
people are invested. They got a lot of time into it too. So I feel like that's another aspect, is you're dealing with, years upon years upon years, because the illness that it causes is so slow, right? I mean, most of us, if not all of us, start in childhood with Kool-Aid and soda, right? And we're drinking that. At some people, I mean, I've seen, it was horrible, but I've seen kids with bottles, 4-year-olds with Kool-Aid in it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's like you would not put a bottle of cocaine. Why are you putting a bottle of Kool-Aid?
I don't think that people look at it that way sometimes. Like, it's just ignorant on the subject because we've made it so normalized for people. And I think more people like us that are out there on social media, like putting our stories out there, the more it gets out there that, maybe this isn't the best thing to be doing for our people and ourselves, or even kids. And I think we even brought up a question not too long ago, like how much of like the illegal drug street addicts, we'll call them, or would not be there if that addiction part of the brain hadn't been, activated with processed foods and sugars at a young age.
Oh yeah, I mean, sugar, processed foods, the gateway drug. I mean, forget marijuana, forget alcohol. It's processed sugar. and sugars and fruits that people are having way younger than whenever they get a hold of any of that stuff, right? And so, and I remember Russell Brand. I still need to get his book.
I love him.
Yeah. Well, he talked about remembering being upset, and then when he was upset, his mom offering him like a candy bar or a cookie or something, and that just or a biscuit English, and and that just kind of being off to the races, and just being hit with like boom. And the clients I work with, I always kind of try to take them back to that childhood. Like, what was that first time that you remember food solves problems, because that's what it's about. That's the message to the brain and the wiring is sweet things solve problems. Sweet things make you feel better. If you have a problem, eat a sweet thing, and it just becomes habitual, and you're so young that you don't see that pattern until decades later.
Well, I mean, we do it for comfort. We do it for celebration. We do it when we're sad. I remember doing it with my mom. I remember going to my grandma and Nana's house, and my grandma and Nana giving me like $1 or $5 bill to go to the corner store to, purchase whatever 5-cent candies or whatever, anything else that was there. I remember as a teenager, 12-pack of pop a day for sure. Easy. And
I would drink Dr. Pepper to go to sleep.
You guys are beating up on grandma pretty bad. Let her generic grandma show up on the cookie packages, the hot chocolate, and then we got good old Wilford Brimley trying to sell us oatmeal.
Remember having at my Nana and grandma's house, I also had a bear full of honey that I was just allowed to go pour into my mouth, right? And it's not like it came from the local farmer's market where that honey came from. And so who knows exactly how much actual honey was in it to begin with. But that's just the way it was. So
they should just put a B on the bottle, right? And just
right. Slightly off topic, but have you noticed the processed food is becoming more like processed? Like I think I saw like Lucky Charms oatmeal the other day. And like, what? I was like there's certain foods out there that I'm like, oh, thank God I'm carnivore now. Otherwise, there's no way I'd be out. Like there's no like I think there was like strawberry shortcake, Oreo, Lucky Charms, or something like off the chain. And it was like, man, I remember like Zingers were like the thing, right? Like that was like the most decadent thing, was like a Zinger and Twinkies, but now it's like next level. It's like, yeah, no, there's no way I would have been able to come back from that stuff. I would have been done. No way.
They pay people billions and billions and billions of dollars to get us there and to get us to open up that package. So, but it becomes, it takes a while. I think so for some people, I guess, depending on what their bottom is or where they're at. I watched myself, it took me to get to a certain point, and that was that moment standing in that restaurant. And then I still wasn't perfect after that, right? I still had to find the people to help me and get where I am today. But I see some people that struggle back and forth with it. And then I have, some people that are so desperate, that gift, in the recovery program, we call it the gift of desperation, right? And some people get that gift of desperation. And there was a lady that I was coaching, and she had that. And she took herself to carnivore. I didn't even have to guide her. I might have mentioned, like, of course, we talk about what I do. And within a couple of weeks, she was making her own bone broth at home. And she ended up not having to have her knee surgery and stuff. And, it's amazing how healing this can be.
So I'd take a minute to go through the comments. They're stacking up over here.
Oh. Yeah, sure.
I hate to interrupt you guys. You're on a roll. But let me go back. Alien Drone Service says 12-step is more helpful for field dependence. You guys have a comment on that? Because it's way outside my pay grade.
Yeah. It helps with, so for me, the opposite of addiction is connection. So it helps with that connection. And that's how I knew that when I became a part of the sugaraddiction.com platform, of having that connection and that like-minded people with it to help us get through there. But they don't help you with well, there's an old timer that told me, because I did try some of the 12-step like food things that they had in town, but like there was no abstinence there. There was no like recovery in those communities, really. Not the recovery I was looking for. And an old timer in my 12-step program told me, he's like, you don't need another program. You have a program. And he wasn't wrong. Like, I've worked the 12 steps on food and stuff with my sponsor, but it's that like-minded tribe that you need that has similar, goals with it, that I think is important.
Yeah, and that's the Joan Eflin model. I'm doing her program right now, her processed food addiction, the Addiction Recovery Center, her thing. And yeah, it's all about like mirror neurons, and you've got to have a tribe of people that are on like the same mission, on the same hunt, in order to like, we're dogs, we're not cats, right? And so we're not solitary creatures, although some of us are more solitary than others. And some of us have pets.
Damn,
and some of us glitch in and out. So there you go. It takes all kinds. But the yeah, and so I think that really helps having a community. Community. It doesn't have to be a 12-step program like Brick, but that community aspect is really important. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The opposite of addiction is connection, because being an addiction, you lose all connection, because you're pretty much all your connection is to substance instead of people, and so it's disarranged.
Absolutely. I mean, like finding you guys through other platforms and seeing you guys and watching you, it's like even just watching on Instagram and stuff like that, those kind of interaction are just repetitive. It's like, well, that's okay. These people are doing it. They're like-minded and they're seeing these results, was a big, huge step in getting to where I am today.
Oh yeah, if they're up for it, I always recommend people I'm working with to ingest as much keto and carnivore propaganda that they can. I straight call it propaganda, because it is propaganda. Propaganda does not have to be negative. You know what I mean? There is so-called white propaganda or good propaganda, and so I'm like, just go in there, try to listen to and watch as much carnivore, keto, unprocessed food propaganda that you can get your hands on, and I don't care if you learn every lesson or whatever, just, not even to learn anything, but just to hear like all the different ways people are rolling this, and as well as just, hey, there's other people eating this way. You're not eating this way alone. And so that way you do feel attached and things like that, and that I think that seems to really help, so we try to add to that here, obviously, and make our own propaganda.
Yeah, that was, I was doing, so before I did the getting rid of the sugar stuff, and that included, the safe sugars per se, because I wasn't able to get to that keto part very well. And then when I found Becky as a coach, and because I knew I needed the higher fat, and she made it so easy. Like, it was just so easy to figure that out for myself. And I think everybody's different on what their needs are and stuff like that. But it just was like one of those things for me that it was like, click, 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 here it is. And what had been working with her, I was doing my own data and taking my blood ketones and my glucose and stuff. So by the time I found a professional to work with to come off my meds, I already had all the data that I needed for her. So I didn't have to start from the beginning, which was kind of nice.
Let me hit another comment. We got Rockin' Rosa Wellness here. She says, yes, I think it's so important taking out the sugar and stopping the inflammation is key. And I'll tell you, like, before I went low carb, was eating an apple every day, and I'd eat the apple in the car on the way to work because I sit in traffic, you know, I got to do something. And I noticed that
Gotta have your apple, you know. There you go.
yeah, because the apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? But
Yeah.
I'd get out of the car and my joint pain would be horrendous sometimes. Is this enough sugar in an apple to inflame the arthritic joints, you know? And then of course the inflammation is an issue, of course, causes pain in a lot of ways, not necessarily for everybody, but also your blood sugar going up and down really affects people's mood, right?
Definitely. Well, I mean, you know, my famous breakfast back in the day, before carnivore, was a gluten-free vegan waffle, a gluten-free vegan juice with like honey and cocoa powder in it, one that I would make in a Ninja blender, and then probably an apple typically was there too, with organic maple syrup. Yeah, that was my no meat for breakfast because I was really more plant-based. So like I avoided meat for my first meal because I thought it was harmful, but I typically have some meat for dinner, sometimes lunch. Yeah.
Mine were zebra cakes and coffee.
Zebra cake?
Oh, yeah.
What's a zebra cake?
Like a little Debbie cake thing.
Think of a Hosters, you know, the Hostess.
Hosters?
Yeah, the Hostess cupcake.
Yeah.
With the okay, but it's white chocolate on the outside with the black swirl or the chocolate swirl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think it's cream in the middle still, or no?
I'm sure that they still do some sort of chemical cream in it, but those were the first things that had to go. Yeah. So you did plant-based for a while then?
Yeah, I mean, I dated a vegan for like 5 years, and so when you're dating a vegan, you go vegan. So yeah, them's the rules. I don't make them. All right, them's the rules though. And so yeah, so one of the journeys on my health was going paleo, so like gluten-free. So I was dating a vegan. I was gluten-free, dairy-free. So trying to eat together, gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, like the most tasteless food you could possibly make, basically. And yeah, so a lot of plant-based. I mean, I also watched, you know, the vegan propaganda, right? So I watched Fork Over Knives, and I watched Fat, Sick, Nearly Dead. That got me into juicing.
Was Dominion out yet?
Dominion wasn't out yet, but there was. What was the cow one? One about cows or whatever. There was.
Yeah.
And then, you know, my family. So half my family's in like North Cal, like straight hippies. So I had a sister that was vegan for a long time, and another sister that called like factory farming cow schwitz. That's what she called it. You know, so it's like kind of like around that culture too, that like meat was bad. Cowspiracy. Yes, that's the one I watched, that one too. Yeah, and so I fell down the plant-based hole pretty hard. Now, I was never like an advocate just because I'm pretty like disagreeable. And so like even if around people, like me being in a group of people has the opposite effect. Like me being around people doing the same thing actually makes you want to do the opposite. So like it's that kind of thinking and stuff like that is totally like counterproductive, you know. You tell me to do like Tom tells me to show up on time and I won't, just out of spite, pretty much. Basically.
Yeah, we had a text exchange about being punctual, and he's like, I'm always punctual, and I'm like, did I text the wrong person?
In my head, I'm on time, and that's what matters. So there you go. So, you know, I went to all the like fancy vegan restaurants in LA, you know. What was it? One Veg World was one where they have like pictures of Isaac Newton and the Dalai Lama and all these people, and they play like vegan propaganda while you're eating. There's what's the one in LA?
To make you feel better about that big bill coming for the tasteless food.
Oh yeah, definitely. Although their chow mein with tofu chicken was bomb. That stuff was really good. It was really sweet and terrible for you now knowing, but
Are we going when you get here?
No, we're not going to One Veg World. We're not doing that.
And I don't mean to protest. That'd be funny if we started carnivore protests in front of vegan restaurants.
That'd be hilarious.
That would just. I try to stay out of that myself. I have a few friends that are of the vegan persuasion, and we try, but we know each other from our 12-step program, so we try to be very mutual or respectful. Actually, one of them got me this shirt. It says, "Come to keto. We have bacon." She got it mainly because I'm a Star Wars person too.
Right.
I wasn't allowed.
Are you
to tag her.
Sith or Jedi?
Oh, I'm definitely Sith.
I knew it. With the red hair, you're definitely Sith. Hey, the movies are just Empire propaganda, and the Empire did nothing wrong. So there you go.
You're right, for sure. But so I try to stay out of that space. But I definitely.
What do you do for entertainment? Come on.
Well, I do trash TV and TikTok. I love trash TV. It is my guilty pleasure. And because those beautiful people are on there and they make my life look glamorous.
Well, let me hit a comment from Rockin' Rosa Wellness again. She said she had a harder time quitting sugar than she did drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the, like we said, you quit drugs and alcohol. And I think actually alcoholics have even a little bit separate difference than a street drug addict, because that's still legal and it's still around everywhere. And I watched people in the recovery community, like a girl, she does really good, but like she walked in for an interview at a restaurant and one of her buddies or whatever was outside on the street with a bottle, and she was too early and they sent her back out. And before she went back in, well, she never went back in. I'll put it that way. So it's absolutely harder. Like I said, everybody's using and the drug dealers are everywhere. So you have to really, I think what's helped me is just educating myself, just over and over and over again on, what it does for the mental health. The same.
This is going to say that withdrawals from alcohol are often far more severe than street drugs, including heroin, and potentially more lethal as well. So.
Absolutely. But they have, even that though, then I think that's the other thing too, is like, I found it's a lot easier. Like when I'm in a high stress situation, sometimes I still have like using dreams, but I haven't had the desire to use for years and years. And I've never had like the let me go use like that. It's not been an option for me for many, many years. And I still see people that do think it's an option for them, even though that they've have the same amount of time. And I think it's just because that addictive brain is still really going in there with putting those substances, whether they're, processed food and sugar.
Well, and if you think about sugar or whatever carbohydrate, we get massive doses of it from the time we're a child, so you're doing that all the way up, and maybe you don't really, you've probably been doing a lot of sugar longer than you've been doing any other drugs, right? I mean, that's the other thing. And it's not, you're not used to viewing it as a dangerous substance, right? Nobody's telling you when you're a kid, hey, stay away from the candy, just don't drink that pancake syrup.
What? No Halloween? Come on.
Now. The most dangerous thing about Halloween when I was a kid was there was a time period where we had we did not get the candy, right? We did not go get the candy, but you had to take it to the hospital and put it through the x-ray machine to make sure there wasn't something in it, but we still got to take how insane does that sound right now, though? That was the process instead of just throwing it away.
Yeah, Christina says you should see people in the South. They put Mountain Dew in their kids' sippy cups. And I don't know if
Hey,
anybody's
Mountain Dew is gamer drink. All right, gamer girls and gamer boys drink Mountain Dew. That's what we
well
do. All right, it's
there's
that culture. You
well,
know,
there's another thing too. So in a lot of poor communities, they drink a lot of Mountain Dew, and these people have no teeth left or anything. You know, people are literally, and these aren't necessarily gamers. It's probably people that don't have a game console and
hey
drinking
man, they're
Mountain.
playing the game of life. They're playing the game of life on hard mode.
There's
But
actually there's actually dentists that go around and treat these people for free because it's such an epidemic. There's documentaries about this. So yeah, the Mountain Dew thing is crazy. So
Well, it's got the highest amount of caffeine in it. That's why gamers drink it.
yeah, ever since it took Jolt Cola off the market, damn it.
Well, they also took away our Sparks and our Tilt. So, boo.
Sparks?
Sparks was malt liquor and an energy drink.
oh yeah, yeah.
Well, when I was a young man and working in a liquor store,
Trigger warning. Sorry, I know we're talking about addiction and everything. Yeah.
this product called Purple Passion came out, and it was like this really sweet purple drink, and it was made by Everclear. And
Ooh.
I don't think it stayed on the market too long because of the fatalities. But I remember it came in a 2-liter bottle too. That was the scary thing. It's a 2-liter bottle of Everclear with purple dye and sugar in it. So I'm pretty sure it's off the market. But
Well, that's just like juice and was it 211? No, not 211. Four Loko. Yeah, people were dying from drinking Four Loko. Yeah, I had friends that would party with Four Loko. I could only drink like a half of one at that point. Anyway, bad times, bad times. No, bad juju. Don't do that, people. Don't listen to me. Yes, that's right, Naaman. Mountain Dew Code Red. Bane of my existence for a while, for sure. Begging my grandmother to spend the extra 35 cents on the Code Red just so I could drink it. Yeah. I forgot how we got here, but I did want to ask Sly a question.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned borderline personality, that you had been diagnosed with that. So that's typically one that's like you're done, you know, pretty much in the therapy space, basically.
Should I grab the DSM to explain to everybody what that is, or would you like to tell them?
Well, it's, you know, there's about 9 different traits from it. Most people with borderline either have other mental health issues or have major traumas in their life. It's pretty much where that comes from. Mine was probably a combination of all of it together when I got diagnosed of it. My biggest one out of that is my predominant trait is the fear of abandonment is really big with it. And that's something that, you know, like you said, they can't give you a medication for it. They can't fix it for you. It's just there. You can do some DBT,
right,
or some COG.
Just for those that don't, dialectical behavioral therapy.
Yeah,
for the audience.
Yeah, you can do some of those things that help the symptoms and interactions with it. I did COG when I was in treatment, but like working a 12-step program and going through those steps usually help with that also. But I can notice a difference in that too. I mean, it's not like not there, but I can definitely back myself off the edge a lot quicker because they'll go through phases of like, I know one day I was ready to quit everybody. I was driving down the road. I was thinking, and then I was coming up with people that I hadn't interacted with, like one of my best friends. I was like, and he hasn't done this and that and this and that. And I was like, well, I'm done. He must have heard me because he messaged me while I was driving down the road cussing him. But I'm able to bring myself back from that a lot quicker than I ever have been. And it's really unreal. It seems unreal of how much better that I am since, you know, doing the high fat carnivore, ketovore, however you want to put it in there. I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers with the way that I use that word.
It's our channel. Our audience is used to us rustling feathers. It's kind of what we do.
I do a very heavy meat-based diet, but I still use MTC oils, some olive oils, and some sauces and seasonings and stuff. And every once in a while, I might eat something that's, veg or whatever.
You were never carnivore.
That was one of the things that really hurt my feelings a lot when I was on another platform, was the fact that I had a professional asking me to put the MTC into my diet, right? During coming off my meds. And so I did, and I was having an off day. I was having a bad day, and I went to a meeting to just because I needed a meeting. Like, sometimes you just need a meeting and you need that interaction. And I was having a bad day. I mean, like, just because I take care of my mental health don't mean that we still don't have to have bad days or things happen.
Battery goes out, flat tire, cat runs away, loses snake, typical stuff.
And it was instead of just like consoling me of what the issue was going on or something like that, it was like brought to attention that I was using a plant fat. And I was just like, and that was the reason that I was feeling some type of way. And I was just like, that's not cool, dude. I did have somebody else in the same meeting come to my defense and was like, this is what a professional has asked her to do. So, and that's, but not everybody's like that at all. I have a very widespread, loving community that accountability group with Dave and Becky and Amanda and Kevin, and, just always been there and helped me along the way. And maybe I'll go over here and try this out to see if this works, or see what's going on over here.
I mean, the thing is that, our openness, our open to experiment, our openness to be test level A on ourselves, that's how we got here, right? And so
Absolutely.
Obviously we're going to keep that up, even though this journey never ends, right? For any of us, I don't think. And so we're constantly like, oh, hey, let's check this out. Maybe you can add this. I love MCT. I mean, I take it almost every morning. And like, as a nootropic, it's really great.
Brings it up every week.
No, I don't.
Not in the videos, but with me.
Oh, I had tried different ones. I do have a specific one that I like to use, and I use it, and I use it every morning. I do the same. And then I've also, and every once in a while, and sometimes, and here's something taboo, I'll use exogenous ketones if I know I'm in a stressful situation.
Are you on the ketone esters?
I don't know if they're esters, but whatever.
Are you mainlining this? That's the concern.
No.
Are
you putting your test strips right in the ketone supplements rather than sticking your finger?
No. Would that work?
Probably.
I actually don't. The only time I use those is like during the busy season at work, or if I know I'm going into a high stress situation for my mental health. I don't think they work for weight loss. I don't think they work for anything else, but I do feel that they can be a tool to use for mental health purposes. 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, me and Tom, our big secret, I guess you're letting it out, is that we're really into nootropics, me and Tom. So just like anything that helps the brain or like gives you that little extra edge is like, I don't know, it's fun. Maybe it's bad for you, but I like it. It's a competitive environment. Me and Tom, probably yourself, have like stressful jobs and things like that. And so sometimes when you're the one that has to keep your cool, that really can't slip, that stuff really helps out,
I'm always wondering if I'll find something that gets me to next level problem solving. So.
Well, you never know. Like they did. I love doing. Something that was different that I did do recently was I did a Kambo ceremony, which is frog medicine.
Yeah.
And that was that was a different experience for sure. It was
Yeah.
like, because there is probably more things that I would like to do, but it doesn't really align with my 12-step program. So I do a lot in that community. So I try to be respectful to what their expectations are really for it. And Cambo falls in that nice little middle ground right there.
Well, I mean, I had an experience. I probably shouldn't talk about this online, but forget it. I mean, whatever. But I had an experience. It wasn't on purpose. It was partially on purpose. But I was given Hell's Bells.
I don't know what that is.
Which is an extremely toxic hallucinogenic.
Oh.
Yeah. So basically, I smashed my face in a mirror and passed out for a night. And my girlfriend and her friend thought I was, gone. But I came back. So here I am. But I know the experience on Cambo is very similar to that, except you're way more conscious for it than when I was.
Yeah, you don't, there's no hallucinogenic properties to it. You don't do any of that stuff. It's just more of a peptide cleansing detox and a purging situation.
Raymond Neff happened to ask, what's the deal with the MCT oil? He just knows it as a medium chain triglyceride. And I'll throw my comment in real quick. Like it does seem to act like a neurotropic. So it does give you a little boost in cognitive ability. And part of that is because it's shunted straight to the brain from the digestive tract. Gets a short circuit to the digestive tract, so from the digestive tract to the brain. So that's part of it, and it's usually sourced from coconut oil. So it's a plant-based product, but you could make the argument that coconut was one of those plant foods that had been available for a long time in broad regions of the world. So perhaps we have some adaptation to eating coconut, but I don't know.
Or our body just treats it as a very clean fat.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that from learning, like making sure that what you're using, make sure when you look at it, if you go to try it, that it's like a C8, C10 chain and whatever else is in there. The one thing that I have learned over and over again sometimes is like, just because it says it's, friendly, keto friendly or ketosis friendly, doesn't mean that it is at all. So even buying products that are supposed to be that, and you can I've read labels. I learned to read labels when I went through the sugar detox with Mike, and reading labels consistently, because sometimes they'll change the ingredients on you. Even if it's the same product, you can pick it up one day and it doesn't have sugar in it, and then the next time you go to buy it, that batch does. So it's being very mindful of that.
Yeah, I haven't tried the MCT oil for quite a while, but since Justin's coming, I have a funny feeling there's some in my future. Yeah, we used to put it in coffee and stuff like that. I know Justin sometimes just takes the capsules. And Christina, I forget what it is. Does eating coconut oil do the same thing, or does it have to be MCT oil? Just wondering. And there is, MCT oil in the coconut oil. It's just that a lot of people bypass eating the whole fat, which is like a combination of fatty acid chains, and they get the refined version. And usually when people take the MCT oil, it's a tiny dose, right? Because otherwise, what happens, Justin?
You might want to be close to a toilet. Let's just put it that way.
But the short chain fatty acids, particularly the CA10s, are the ones that go to the brain. So when you eat the whole coconut fat, your body has to, those fats have to be separated out and absorbed. And then when you eat the refined stuff, it's just a very small doses can be very effective and a little less likely to cause the old disaster pants.
Lubricating your organs.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ways to, before I went to the MTC, like I said, I worked with Becky. So I use tallow as a fat, as a, help out with mental health too. Her tallow bites and stuff, which worked really well also.
Or butter. You could wake up and just have a stick of butter as well, or some tallow. Any fat will have a similar effect. It's just the MCT itself is like concentrated, and your body just uptakes it like immediately. And so
to the brain.
I would not recommend using the MCT oil as a cooking fat.
No, not at all.
I actually, sometimes I put it in the coffee and stuff, but there was a time period too that when I was using it as strictly a medication, I would get like the little syringes you get for baby medications and pull the 2 tablespoons and just straight like take it. Nice. I took it like medication. And that's what even the epilepsy, the Charlie Foundation, that's how they promote it for using some of those fats and oils when they're doing the high keto diet.
Yeah, it's effective. It's an effective way to add a fat to diets that is very helpful for particularly people with seizure disorders. And we got to remember that's the origin of the keto sort of concept, is controlling seizures before there were all kinds of seizure pharmaceuticals available. And I think people forget that because you hear people talking about their ketone levels all the time, like they know what the optimal ketone level is for whatever they're doing or how they live their life. And it's like, well, I mean, are we fighting seizures, or are we just trying to get healthier and feel better? Because they don't necessarily require the same level of ketones.
No, they don't. And that was one of the things that, and I was so glad that I finally, put the investment in taking Jordan Edie's 5-week class for the mental health, because there is all that information of like, where does your ketones need to be at for this? And where does your ketones need to be at for that? I don't coach for weight anymore. The last person I did was a coworker, and I just don't do it anymore. I'll help with mental health, or help you if you got physical ailments and stuff and need to get off sugar or do things for that, but or addiction. But having that thing, she recommends between a 1 and a 2.5, depending on the severity of the mental health aspect of it, and where you're at. And she doesn't even recommend that. Some people don't even have to do it for the rest of their lives. It could be having that high ketosis for a couple years, maybe up to 5 years, I think, and then they can maybe waver a little bit after it gives the brain some time to heal. Not waver going back to processed foods or sugar, just waver on the amount of ketones in your body.
Marge is asking if anybody here monitors ketones or glucose. So you guys that are commenting, maybe you could comment on that as well. But let's hear if Justin and Sly are monitoring either one.
Sly raised her hand, so go for it, Sly.
Yes, I do monitor mine. I don't do it as often as I used to. Before I came during the time period I came off of medications, I did it daily. Now I do it more so right now because I'm in a stressful environment, like a high stressed environment at work right now. So I monitor them every 2 or 3 days just to see where my levels are. But even that, like if you're doing the right thing, if you're eating in the right way, then I don't think that you have to, but it is a good tool to see where you're at.
I checked in the beginning, but I haven't checked in a couple of years. And it's just mainly I don't want to buy the strips, and I'm too lazy to prick my finger every so often. And I mean, I'll do it, but it's mainly just like, you talk to Tom, like my life is like minimal effort. Like that's pretty much like where I like to be, is just minimal effort, basically.
In the diagnostic and statistics manual, his condition is listed under LAZY. So I used to do all kinds of every kind of monitoring I could. I have probably done over 1,000 finger sticks in the past, and I used to drive Sean absolutely crazy with the data. And he's like, "All right, which one of those numbers says you're healthy?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I love data." So I have
Well, I
the
mean,
ketonics breath unit. So I have 2 different meters for the blood draws plus the glucometer and stuff. And the thing is, none of it had anything to do with my goals, right? So
right.
that was the point. I was just fascinated by it. So, and of course, it depends on what your goals are. And, if you have a set point that is optimal for whatever that goal is, granted that it's worthwhile. So, but that's why I don't do it anymore. So
Mine is about an 80 for my glucose and about a 2 to 2.5 for my ketones is when I can tell I'm
Nice.
like in that real zone right there. But I mean, doing that daily, especially if you've been in ketosis for a long time, you're not always going to be up there. You'd probably have to add more fat to get up there or exogenous ketones to get back up to that point.
Well, yeah, because the body starts burning so efficiently. And even though you're getting something on a monitor, that's actually ketones floating around in the blood, not ketones that you're using. So it gets kind of complicated.
yeah, it all comes out of when you test too. So I was testing many times a day because you wake up in the morning, okay, what's going on, man? What's my glucose? Am I in ketosis? I haven't eaten in 10 hours. And then you go hit the gym. And as soon as you start doing a strenuous activity, man, your ketone levels are dropping because your body's just burning through them left and right. So those high numbers are fine for, more sedentary activity and stuff like that. But as soon as you get really active, because even in the recovery phase, they tend to drop off, right?
Yeah, and that was something that I had to set a goal for myself. Even when for a long time, I always wanted to go do the Tough Mudder. And
Mhm.
for those that don't know what that is, it's just like an obstacle course, 5K,
Mm.
10K, 15K. But I was also in the military for 13 years, and I thought it'd remind me of my military days kind of situation. And so I finally went and did that this past summer, but you obviously
Wow.
have to train for it before then. And I hadn't really been working out or involving exercise in my program yet. And now I work out every day. So,
Yeah, let's let me make a comment. A lot of this stuff of testing ketones and glucose kind of is a carryover from the ketogenic diet. So, and a lot of people started in keto before they came to carnivore. So it comes up a lot. And then, as we see in specific cases, it could be you had a coach who was like, okay, to meet these goals, you want to try and get your glucose and your ketones in this range for this and that. And then of course people who control seizures and stuff like that. But a lot of people on a carnivore, there's not a real utility for it because it doesn't help them meet their goals. But it's
no.
fun to talk about. I mean, because it's like the only other thing is like I go to the gym every day and lift, and for me, the results show up very, very slowly, right? Day after day, you're grinding away. Day after day, there's a little bit of change, right? But when you got a meter or a breath analyzer, it's like you got some instant data, you got some instant feedback. It's like the like button getting clicked on your YouTube video, it's like ding ding.
And I think that's something that I know Dr. Boz, I took her continuous keto continuum, I think it's called. And that's why she uses it. She doesn't use it for you to reach like these ultimate levels, even though she has some like programming and tells you what the numbers mean with her Dr. Boz ratio and stuff. But it's just that reward system that you're giving yourself by even just simply, and we know it's like leftover ketones, we know it's extra ketones when you put it on a stick, but it's still just that reward system of,
I did
hey,
something and there was a result,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a demonstration of your discipline, which I could understand.
Well, and I think it's interesting for people because unless you're in this space, there's a whole nother system, a whole nother world inside you that you're completely ignorant of, right? And so it is like, oh, ketones, what's that? You learn about, beta hydroxybutyrate, and then it's like, oh, that's neat. And of course, it's just a stand-in for many other processes that are going on in the body as well.
Right.
It's just like me and Tom always like to say, just because you can test it doesn't mean it's the most important thing. There's a lot of important things going on that we actually just don't have good quality tests for.
Right. Let me hit a comment from Marjorie Martinez, my old pal. I'm so jealous when I hear such great success stories with keto/carnivore because I tried for 6 years and I ran into so many issues. Any idea why some people do amazing and some not so much? What do you recommend?
Well, I mean, I was unsuccessful for many, many years. I didn't have success. I mean, like even when I came out of treatment at 200 pounds, wasn't, like I didn't try different things, and keto was the main objective in most of it, but I didn't have the sweet spot, maybe. I don't know. I didn't have the consistency. And sometimes you have to do it consistent for a long time before you see that next result. And what was it? James Clear. I love Atomic Habits. I use that with a lot of my coaching now. He talks about, you're sitting in a room and you have the ice thing and it doesn't change. And it's coming down. And then once it hits like 32 degrees, all of a sudden it starts melting. Or the bamboo shoots, it spends 90% of its time underground building up until it just sprouts up and shoots up. Finding somebody that can relate to you and work with you and help you like tweak those moments can help.
Yeah, well, a lot of people come to carnivore because they have a serious health problem, whether it's mental health or physical health. And, a lot of people don't have the motivation to come here yet because it's still kind of an outlier, right? Still kind of new. And so we have to remember that people have a variety of different problems. And some people like Emily Penton, good friend of mine, and Justin, she was stricken with not only bipolar, but also MS. And
she got the MS after going carnivore. She stopped walking, being able to walk.
That's when it was detected, right?
Right.
So, and she stuck with it. But the thing is, she lost 100 pounds in a year, and her bipolar went away, and her MS symptoms went away. She still has a plaque in her brain. They still see it on the scan, but she doesn't have any symptoms, right? And you think that's an amazing journey for 1 year, right? To lose 100 freaking pounds in a year and beat two really, really debilitating diseases. But she's kind of the exception. And I mean, she's a little younger than me, so I could throw that in there. And I spent my whole childhood yo-yo dieting, which I'm sure is just cause for metabolic disaster, And I was in really rough shape when I finally got to carnivore. So I think the real issue is that everybody's story is different, and some people, they just don't need to stick with it as long, or the initial healing happens quickly because there's just not as much healing to do. As severe as bipolar disorder and MS sounds, the amount of carnivore it took to rectify that and lose 100 pounds was not that long in time. It wasn't a long exposure to a better diet that it took to rectify that. Where some people have different conditions, some people are older, some people have been yo-yo dieting, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think the only thing we can do is to work our way through those details. I mean, like you're talking about the benefits of Sly's talking about the benefits of hitting goals with her ketones and her glucose levels, right? I go to the gym every day. I couldn't care less what my glucose levels are. I mean, I know I just ate 3 pounds of top sirloin, so what do I care? Because I'm performing at the gym and that's my goal, right?
Right. Well, and then, there's that other complication thing of us women at a certain age have to go through
21, Sly?
Yeah, 21.
Forever.
But of us women at a certain age, it can be a little bit more complex for us too, and that healing and what needs to happen.
And I'm not even convinced it's more complex because men have their hormones.
Send your hate mail to Thomas this time instead of me.
I know.
Usually I get the hate mail, but I think Tom
Justin's the
put
official hate
himself
mail
on
recipient.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because and this is something I've discussed with other people, is that men's hormone profile changes as well. So, and generally not to the better. And in fact, statistically, men's hormone profiles when they get over 40 tend to be worse than women's. They're more deviant than they were. So it just seems that the symptoms that women tend to suffer tend to be things that people are more willing to treat.
Well, that's another thing too, is like, I can remember a couple years ago where I had a horrible fall because I was having hot flashes all the time. And I don't have those anymore. I don't have any symptoms of that going on at the present time, but it didn't go over. Like, my mental health went away or got fixed pretty quickly, right? Because I got the inflammation out of my brain and I was feeding my brain the right things and stuff like that. And then because the inflammation went down, the rheumatoid arthritis and waking up hurting went away. The lupus was present, but not heavily in my life. I knew just by the education that if I did that, I wouldn't have to be on medications. My mom has lupus and she's medication dependent, and she has Raymond's disease on top of it. But it's still like, there's still other things. Like, I'm still 4'11", and even though I was at 200 pounds, I was probably a size 16, and I'm down to a size 7 now, but I still have weight that I could lose, or midsections that I could take care of and things like that. So, I mean, it's like Justin had said, the journey is never completely over. There's always stuff that you can, and that's where the playing, I think, comes around for it with me sometimes, of that vanity. I did try something this last few weeks, and I pushed in a little bit. I tried to pull back on the fat some and push the protein up, and I was really heavily dependent on some exogenous ketones, and it was mainly for vanity, right? It wasn't for anything else but vanity. But I learned real quickly that my sanity was more important to me. And I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that pretty quickly, actually.
So I'm curious, what did you notice? What symptomology came back, or to what degree, or how did you know, like, okay, this is going to work, and then that versus the push through, or, let me see where this goes,
I could just tell I was grabbing the ketones in a can a lot more. The stress factor, like, I know I'm in a stressful, high production part of the time of my year. It's that way all the time, every year, like clockwork. And I was seeing other results. Like, I lost 6 pounds right away, but it was at the cost of, like, I was getting like short fused, I wasn't sleeping as well. I could just mood change, just complete difference in all that. And I have to interact with other people. We actually implemented.
Damn it, that ruins everything.
I know.
Interact with other people.
We implemented the burpee program at work right now. So instead of reacting, we have to do 5 burpees first.
Sounds worse. What are you talking about?
For me and another coworker, but I could just tell the difference in it, and maybe that would have leveled out. I don't know, but it just wasn't worth it for me at the moment. And then I went and immediately bought my MTC oil. And I'm not reaching for the ketones in a can like I was. So
interesting.
I would like to take a moment to comment on Marjorie's comment. So, I mean, I feel like it's definition of success. And the longer your diet's been quote unquote poor or whatever, obviously the longer it's going to take to heal. Hormones, of course, is a big thing. Sleep, life stress, mental stress. So I feel like those of us that do really well when we come to carnivore, when we finally find it, I notice the people that have done the best did a lot of mental and emotional work before finding carnivore. They were either like me, like, I was doing like spiritual programs, and I was doing getting my master's degree in psychology. I'd done like a lot of different stuff already, been in therapy. And I think the mental emotional release has a lot to do with it, for your body to let go of weight, let go of trauma, let go of whatever neurons might not be firing properly, et cetera, et cetera. Because for me, coming to carnivore was I feel like, last piece of my puzzle for me to have health, to kind of put everything I'd learned together to be effective, to operate at a level that I always knew that I could. And I say all of that to say, I think that's why working with a coach can be so helpful or so important, that can get on your individual level and really take a microscope to your life. Because sometimes it does take picking apart every little piece of your life to see where the falter is, or where the disconnect is, and that's kind of what I do with the people I work with. So I work with severely carb processed food addicted, typically overweight, post-menopausal women. That just who comes to find me, and I'm kind of like last chance Justin over here, like for real for them. And that's what we do. And I have a client that, after working with her for a year, she's finally eating real food and staying away from the processed food. And that's a year of work. We just barely hit the year mark. Well, not barely. We hit the year mark like a couple of weeks ago, or this past week. And hold her hand through it. You know what I mean? Just be that person and that support for her. And again, so everyone says carnivore super easy, just eat the meat, salt, water. I say no. This is certainly more difficult, and more difficult for others. And it depends on what you're looking for. And I get why we say that. And there's a large majority of people that just eat meat, drink water, does wonders for them, 100%.
Yep, for sure.
But there's a subsection of that, maybe we're talking 20%, where that isn't enough. And you've really got to troubleshoot the metabolic syndrome. And I think a lot of it has to do that. So the way I describe it to my clients is, we have two engines inside of us. We've got the glucose engine, and we've got the ketone engine, beta hydroxybutyrate engine. And the longer you've lived your life revving up the glucose engine, the more dormant the keto engine becomes. And so we
freeze.
We freeze. We have to work through a process to restart and reignite that ketone engine. And I know things like keto fat bombs, exogenous ketones are supposed to do that. MCT oil, butter in the morning, things like that can certainly help. Because basically what you have to do, at least the way I understand it, is, I think, starting the day with fat, so that your brain and your body are like, what the crap is this? This is a bunch of fat. This isn't sugar. What are you giving me? And so your body's going to throw a fit. It's going to be upset. Okay. And you're going to feel tired, and it's going to suck. All right. But eventually, like a crying child that wants a cookie, if you never give them that cookie and only put the steak, eventually they're going to become hungry enough to eat the steak. And basically you have to parent yourself in a very similar way until that ketosis engine starts functioning somewhat appropriately. And even then, we still got work to do.
Yeah, I have a little more to say too. I mean, one, we have to take into consideration environment. So if you're in a stressful environment, like you said, people do a lot of work on themselves, or resolving issues tend to be more successful. And then we can't leave out genetics. So we got a lot of people out there with unique mutations, like the MTHFR and stuff like that are talked about a lot.
Methylation issues.
Methylation issues and various other SNPs. I mean, just people who can't digest dairy are kind of at a disadvantage on a carnivore, and dairy is so complicated, so there's some people can eat cheese but can't drink milk, and some people can have raw milk but they can't have pasteurized milk, and some people can eat butter and some people can't eat anything, and on and on and on. So there's that. And there's also a big difference between starting with a person who's 200 pounds overweight and a person who's 50 pounds overweight. It's a massive difference. And how long they've been carrying around that excess adipose tissue, because we were kind of touched on hormones a little bit, because everybody's middle-aged woman, I got that thing going on. And my argument is, men got a thing going on too. It's different, but it's based on hormones. The more adipose tissue you have, the higher your estrogen levels, right? Or let's say, you've got a history of drinking alcohol and you've recently quit. And but the alcohol also raises your estrogen levels, whether you're male or female, right? So the diet, the exposure to hormones, the exposure to toxic substances like ethyl alcohol, and so they all have an effect on the body. Certain cells in the body live for a day, others live for years. And as you are eating and adapting to a new diet, those cells are being replaced, presumably, with more suitable cells for your new diet, right? Because those cells have gradually been adapted to eating your previous diet. So all that plays a role. And I think that leads us to one thing a lot of people miss is they did really good on a high fat and they're eating ribeyes and having fat snacks on top of it, and then a year, 2 years, 3 years into it, they've got to adjust their diet because that thing they did in the beginning isn't optimal for them now, right? And a lot of people do really good on high fat in the beginning, and they stick with it, and then they have problems like, well, I'm just eating too much fat. I got disaster pants all the time. I can't eat enough because every time they eat fat, it shuts down their satiety, and they can't get enough protein in. And I've seen this over and over again. And that's one of the things that, because like Justin, I wind up with some of the people that didn't do well with other coaches or tried to do it on their own. And they're like, why doesn't it work for me? And it's like, how much did you weigh when you started? 475 pounds, huh? Okay. That's some rare ground there. Most people don't have any experience with that. So when you try and copy the habits of somebody who went from 200 pounds to 150 pounds, is very different from a person who's 450 pounds or whatever and coming down from that, right? So
another thing I'd like to throw in, Tom, sorry if you weren't done yet, is oftentimes people trying to do too much at once. I'm fasting. I'm also doing Emmerich, and then I started following Becky, and so she did high fat, and so
I'm taking MCT oil and HTP5, and I'm throwing in some taurine, and I'm having some more vitamin D, and I
have a 36-hour fast coming up.
You guys know the snake diet guy, Cole?
Yeah, Cole Robinson. Sure.
I worked with him for about 6 months during COVID because I had gained some weight back. And I mean, he's got a potty mouth, but he's really amazing. I fasted with him till I couldn't fast anymore, actually. My body's just decided, nope, you're done with this right now. But yeah, and then that's when I did go to the high fat. I was actually looking into fat fasting, and I only did it I thought about it. Somebody had my friend who didn't do none of this stuff, right? She made a Snapchat, and she had this like very fatty coffee she was making. She's like, fat fasting. And it just like this brain click went off into me. And it was like right about that time when I met Becky. And I was like, yeah, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And so find a coach or find a program and just run the entire program step by step the way it's supposed to run. Whether it's Cole Robinson, Sean Baker, Becky, all the different people. I don't know if me and Tom particularly have a program. I know I don't. But again, I like to put in minimal effort, not towards my clients, But on my side of
He saves all his energy for his clients.
Yes, I save
Yeah.
all my energy for the
Well,
clients
that's
and our
good.
live streams. There you go. Yeah.
See, Marge says she's got the MTHFR gene. So,
and I
that's
did do a test once that showed all my SNPs and stuff like that. I don't remember where those results are though. So
yeah,
I've got a bunch of. Everyone's got genetic SNPs and stuff.
It's very common in autistic community for some reason as well. So I haven't seen the hard statistics on it, but if you're in any autism groups for any period of time, that comes up. It's like, I got it. Me too. And it's just like a tidal wave of people going, yeah, I got it tested and I got it too. So
we're just all mutants of a monster.
Right.
That's a Black Oak, Arkansas song for those people out there that know that band is. Their singer has like the weirdest voice I've ever heard, but it's great music. It's like hillbilly blues metal.
Now they're going to be looking that on YouTube instead of watching us.
After the live, go and look up Black Oak, Arkansas, when electricity came to Arkansas. It's a great song. They even play the washboard. It's amazing.
Some real Kentucky stuff. Virginia mountain things going on there, huh?
Yeah.
We should have Brett on to talk about it.
He probably knows them. I mean, not knows of them. He probably knows their music.
Pretty sure Brett knows how to play a washboard.
Or you can look up their song, Happy Hooker. That's also a great song.
All right, now I'm interested.
You've gotten us. We're hooked. That's the next thing we're going to do.
All right, anything else? I think people stopped commenting. We must have exhausted them.
See, Raymond knows.
Raymond. There goes Raymond. Raymond knows everything except what MCT oil does. So.
Blue Oyster Cult, they're okay. Like you buy their greatest hits and it's not that great. And so between me and a bunch of friends was like,
I think Blue Oyster Cult is way better in person than they ever were on the recording. So
well, I think they're just stuck with that one hit wonder, which is amazing. I mean, every funeral should be mandatory, like playing Don't Fear the Reaper.
Right. Oh, here's Kevin Smith just showed up, and we're just about to shut her down.
Stop doxing people, Tom. Stop doxing.
Sorry.
People need to, in our chat, start saying, please no government name. That's what we got to start.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
No government name.
Yeah. Please no government name. Yeah.
All righty then.
Sly, any last things? Any other questions for Sly? Of course, Sly is going to come back and visit us another time.
Absolutely.
Happy to have you. Have you had fun? We try to have fun.
I did. This was great after a long weekend and dealing with some things. But I guess if you are struggling or know somebody that's struggling with mental health issues, and you know that this can help, I know we're not supposed to force feed people things if they don't respond very well to that, but
some people pay handsomely to be force fed. I'm just saying.
Right. They're one of the biggest regrets that I have in the last year is not bringing this to the table for a friend of mine that ended up committing suicide, who suffered from bipolar and borderline way severely than I did. I don't know that it would have saved him, but it was, I remember mentioning it to him, but it scared me because he said that they had put him on lithium and he wasn't balanced out yet. And so I backed away from that conversation or pushing it a little bit more. And, this past March, he completed the suicide, and I don't know if it would have made a difference, but it could have. So just really a passion of mine to make sure that people that struggle from mental health issues, that medications may not be fully working for them. Maybe you can't come completely off your medications, but it can improve and help the medications that you're on. Definitely look into that and try to get some help with that. And then some men And that's another thing that's in our community that's really big, that men do not like to take certain mental health medications because of the side effects that they have from them.
Weight gain and the ED. Yep.
Yeah, and the weight gain and the ED, and I know that had a big play in a couple of my friends not wanting to take their mental health medications. And this can be a alternative method to it. And again, I'm not against medications whatsoever. I think that they're necessary, and if I would need to go back on them, I definitely would for my mental health. But changing your food up, whether it's a carnivore, a high fat carnivore, keto, whatever it is to look like to get you where you need to be, I think it's very important you at least look into it, at least get the toxic shit out of your diet. And it's a whole different world over here.
It is. It's a different world. Makes like the rest of your life seem like a lie, right? Like,
yeah.
Damn it, Wilford Brimley.
Yes, we are still doing the Dutchman Challenge. I think we're shooting for this coming Sunday.
No, this coming Sunday. How's that possible?
What is that?
So have you ever been to an In-N-Out, Sly? In-N-Out Burger?
We don't have those here.
So anyways, they make a burger patties with cheese. So you get 2 burger patties, 2 slices of cheese, and they call it the Flying Dutchman. And since Justin or Joe are coming next weekend, we were going to have a challenge and have people meet up with us. And
10 Flying Dutchmen.
Did you want to try and do it Sunday? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to try and do it next Sunday then.
Cool.
So, see, it says 11 a.m. Sunday. Apparently, I put it in there.
Nice. All right. 11 a.m. Sunday. Thanks for telling me. Thanks for telling me, Raymond, because I'm not sure Justin told me that, because I thought Justin wanted to do it the following weekend, but I'm down for it, whatever. So it's going to be at the In-N-Out in Norco, which is right off the 15 freeway, just north of the 91, a little bit south of the 60. So it's good. I didn't know Raymond was from SoCal. I hope you show up, Raymond. It'd be good to meet you in person. And I'm sure you'll have a good time watching Justin and Joe, who are half my size, eat twice as many Flying Dutchmen. Bastards. So, I'm going to go down hard on that one, but I'm going to go down fighting.
I don't care if I got to use a puke bucket. I'm doing it.
I will never be allowed back at that In-N-Out. So I'll have to wear a disguise and borrow somebody's car just to get something to eat.
So Sly did make a very important point. That is a big reason why we do this. We don't do this for money. We really don't. We really. This definitely
costs me money.
Yeah, this costs us money to do this. Yeah. But it's because we've all seen people be ill or lost a life that need this message.
For sure.
I have a friend right now who has lupus, and she honestly might not make it. She's living out of her van. She's in Orange County area. She's been a friend of mine for a while now. She's vegan, like diehard, committed vegan, been vegan for, I think, like 10 years, something like that. And she just does not see the connection. And like you, Sly, I'm kind of in a position, I don't know. I'm like, how hard should I push to try to get her on this side? You know what I mean? And I don't know, it's something I still kind of struggle with.
I've been working at this, starting with low carb, for at least 6 years, more than 6 years of learning and having conversations with people. And I found myself trying to explain it to somebody on the phone in like an hour last night. And it's like, there's no way to encapsulate it all, right? There's no way to, because everything you talk about there, they have very reasonable doubts about everything you say. So yeah, it's tough. So we try and get the
and just no reference, nowhere to really stick,
Well, there's stable isotopes, but most people are like, what?
Right. Well, I mean,
in
people's
latrines, stable isotopes. Hard science is a hard sell. I'm just saying.
Well, that's why I think the social media, just like everybody putting their content out there, regardless of like if they are getting the coaching clients, or if they have 50 followers, or if they have 100 million followers, somebody out there somewhere, they're affecting and helping. And it's just, and the more people that tell their stories, the more they can't deny it, right?
Right. Yep. The anecdotes add up. They stack up high enough, then they outweigh almost everything else, right?
Exactly.
Well, I want to thank everybody who's shown up. Raymond, Christina, Mike Homage, who may or may not be Kevin Smith. Sly. And Marge, my good friend Marge. And let's see, Alien Drone Service is here. Rock and Rosa was here. Seems like there was some. Who am I forgetting?
Christina.
I think I hit her. I
Hey,
can't.
don't be hitting
Oh,
women.
Vanessa was here. That's right. Vanessa was listening. She joined us early on. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for commenting and asking questions and for the support. And yeah, Raymond, I'm looking forward to meeting you at the challenge.
Here's your reminder.
Hopefully we get a chance to talk before I make myself sick eating Flying Dutchman.
Here's your reminder.
So, but thanks again, everybody. Leave us your comments. Don't forget to share the video with anybody who might be interested in it, or
your enemies.
Or your enemies. And when you go to work in the morning, just let our entire channel play over and over again. So, and look forward to, for all the people out there, the ADD, ADHD, look for our super short niblet videos coming out. They're like 2 or 3 minutes long. So, yeah, good night, Christina. And, say a prayer for all those people chugging Mountain Dew, would you? All right. Until next time.
Eat some meat. Feel better.
Whatever you do.
Don't fall down the carb hole.